Good evening and welcome to the City Council Finance Committee on February 23rd. We have two items on the agenda this evening. 02121 that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the CARES Act, and 02221 an order for expenditure of funds from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency grant. We will begin with the CARES Act funding. This is an order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the CARES Act, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, CDBG CV3 program in the approximate amount of $235,362 for the purpose of said grant as follows: homeowner and renter assistance, $115,000, homelessness services, $12,000, support for students, $8,000, and food insecurity, $23,362. And before we proceed, I apologize, I forgot to call the roll at the beginning. Councilors present this evening are Councilor Boschman, Councilor Hughes, Councilor Walsh, and myself, Councilor Zarella. I am chairing this meeting this evening in the absence of Councilor DiNatale. That said, Mr. Skrowski, would you like to say a few words on this matter?
Good evening, councilors, and welcome to the councilor. Welcome to the council, Councilor Hughes. Look forward to working with you. Just briefly, this is the third round of CDBG CARES Act funding from the federal government. This is the second round that the City of Fitchburg will be participating in. The council had already approved a component of this round earlier this winter for $200,000 to go directly towards small business assistance. This would appropriate the remainder of the budget. And, you know, we wanted to hold off on the rest of it because we were going through our year 47 CDBG, just kind of our normal yearly process. And we thought it would be a good opportunity to check in with applicants, check in with community members as they're either submitting an application or as we held our various community input meetings for year 47 to get a sense of what the coronavirus needs and demands were in the community. And ultimately, this allocation request for the remainder kind of covers what we saw as some of the major needs that were bubbling up. So again, of course, we already appropriated the $200,000 for small business assistance. That's a huge need in the city, but so is rental assistance. And, you know, we're partnering with Making Opportunity Count already on $230,000 from the first phase. This would take an additional $115,000 and allocate it towards both rental and homeowner assistance. So for the homeowner assistance piece, we'd be looking to work with New View Communities and their foreclosure prevention counselors. With the rental assistance, we'd look to partner with the Spanish American Center on rent and utility assistance. And then for a small component, we were actually looking to partner with Community Legal Aid, who is an applicant for our standard CDBG year programming. And we thought this could be a good opportunity to kind of split their funding request in half. So half of their funding would go towards the traditional year 47 activities, and the other half would go towards the CV round, because a lot of what they're doing is kind of geared towards coronavirus response, whether it's with a renter or a homeowner facing foreclosure. And then with the remainder, we've got about $12,000 in homelessness services that would be dedicated towards North Star Family Services, who is, again, one of our subrecipients, both with our previous coronavirus round, but also with our just sort of standard CDBG activities. And then we have two other items: support for students. We had a request in our year 47 application from both the Boys and Girls Club to basically have kind of a hybrid working space for students that don't have necessarily great access to Wi-Fi and internet to do the remote learning. And I think we wanted to hold this line item out there as the city and the school systems are reopening in a hybrid model starting next week. we thought it'd be a good opportunity to think about, what those needs might be and how we could support the Boys and Girls Club in making that hybrid model work for them. And then lastly, food insecurity. We already have a $25,000 contract with our first coronavirus round with the Salvation Army. This hopefully would be an extension of that. And, certainly it's a great need in the community. Some of you may have seen the Fitchburg Families First initiative that's been taking place at the Fitchburg Art Museum in, partnership with the TDI partners and Reimagine North of Maine. They're, distributing various gift cards to local restaurants and other food packages as part of that program. The response has been pretty overwhelming and has underscored a real need in the community. So we want to make sure that we are also reaching that key need area. And, that's really it in a nutshell. I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
Any questions from committee members? Councillor Brochman. You're muted.
My question, first of all, on the rental assistance, what groups did you give it to, Tom? You said again?
So this has not been formalized yet, but we have had discussions with the Spanish American Center for rental and utility assistance. And then the other two buckets would really be in support of either foreclosure prevention or community legal aid. Wouldn't provide direct support to tenants, but they would provide legal advice.
All right. Now, when you say the Spanish Center, do we have one in Fitchburg? I didn't think we had one. I thought there's only one in Leominster, right?
That's correct. So this would go to support the Leominster-based Spanish American Center, but it could only be allocated towards Fitchburg residents.
So how do we know that the funds are being allocated to Fitchburg residents? Is there any kind of documentation stating that that's going to the Fitchburg residents?
Correct. And we have a pretty rigorous documentation standard. It's actually not dissimilar to what Making Opportunity Counts is doing with the first round of funding, because as you know, they're also a regional organization. So as they're taking in rent and utility assistance applications, they have to sort of filter through the applications. A, are they from Fitchburg? And then B, are they income eligible, which means they're at least 80% of the area median income. And then there's some pretty, rigorous documentation that needs to be provided to assure that is the case.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's for Fitchburg residents.
Absolutely.
Not other communities.
No, absolutely.
The other question is, I have no problem with the support for students on the, what do you call that? The
Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah. But the food insecurities, that 23,000. My question to you, with all the food banks that we have in the Fitchburg area, and we still need this much food, more?
Yeah, sadly, I think we do. And again, the Fitchburg Family First program is a great, I think, window into the need, even though we have all these other food banks and we have all these service providers helping fill that need. I think this Saturday when they opened up, they had a line stretching out, all the way to the end of Academy Street. And they got rid of, every time they have an event, they increase the number of bags that they provide and they end up going through them quicker than the last time. I think we're confronting a real, not just public health crisis, but an economic one. And I think one of the first places that affects families is often in the food pantry. So I do think there's a clear need. And this was actually one of the items that was mentioned as we are going through the community input meetings and with our year 47 application process as a need that, even though we have organizations provided it, it still is a need that needs to be filled.
Well, let me ask you a question, Tom. Was there any kind of documentation given to that on the at the arts thing, where you had to prove that you needed the gift certificate? Or could a person that makes $80,000 say, "I'm in need of help and I want to get in there," and I get a thing where he doesn't need it? That's my only question.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't think they went through. And I could be wrong because it wasn't my program. I just heard the downtown coordinator and Nick Capasso from the Art Museum mention it earlier today. That's why it's fresh on my mind. But one thing I will say is I believe the program opened up at 10 that morning, and they had cars lining the road starting at 8 o'clock that morning. So that tells me that, even if they didn't look at income eligibility, if you're willing to wait in your car for 2 hours to get, these goods, you need them regardless of where you fall in the income strata. So I do. And certainly with our program, there is a different level with the Salvation Armies of sort of qualification.
And can you just go over the homeless services again? Is that going to be for our Father's House and Fitchburg residents?
It's going to be for North Star, which is based in Leominster, but it would, they certainly house Fitchburg residents. And the goal here is to extend their previous request, which, at congregate living facilities are some of the highest spreaders of coronavirus. And one of the best ways they can help prevent that is by rigorous cleaning regimens. And this helps to support their ability to do that safely and effectively, because if they didn't have funding from us, it'd be pretty cost prohibitive. But it will directly benefit, I think, a number of Fitchburg families that are certainly housed in Leominster through that program, but are traditionally.
Do you have any idea how many families from Fitchburg are in the MHIN or North Star now? Do you have any clue?
The number fluctuates. Last I recalled, it was between 3 to 5.
It's not pretty big building, so they can't really have a lot of families in there, right?
I 3 to 5 people. Yeah, I mean it's a small number. I won't dispute that, but I think it makes a big impact.
All right, that's it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I make a motion that we accept.
I have a motion from Councillor Walsh that
Oh,
we
sorry about
approve,
that.
so I will take that as a second.
Okay, thank you.
So
Sorry.
I have a motion and a second. Is if there's anyone speaking on the motion? Otherwise, if there is no objection, we will approve this by unanimous consent. Seeing no objection, it is approved. Moving
Thank you.
on, and thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Thank
You too.
Thanks, Tom.
We'll see you tomorrow night.
We will.
You won't. I will. And Councillor Walsh will. Moving on, we have 02221, an order that the City of Fitchburg hereby approves the expenditure of funds from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency grant in the approximate amount of $5,000 for the purpose of said grant, which is to purchase equipment for the city's community emergency response team. And we have with us this evening Chief Marama, who can introduce the item to us.
Evening, councilors. How are we doing?
Very good.
Welcome,
How are
Chief.
you?
Good. Council Hughes, nice to meet you in a virtual setting. I'm sure we'll meet in person at some point. But yes, I'm very happy here tonight to be presenting this grant. Give you a little background. This is a CCP grant, which is the Citizen Core Program grant through the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. It's an annual competitive sub-grant application process. So it's made available to local community emergency response teams. So our local community emergency response team falls under the umbrella of the fire department. So completely funded, completely organized, completely overseen by here at the fire department. So these grants are pretty vital to us when it comes to getting equipment in for these teams. Again, as like I said, a lot of communities have sub-revenue streams for these emergency management teams. We fund that completely out of our budget and our revenue. So it's a reimbursement-based grant. It can be used towards planning activities, equipment, training, exercises, things of that nature. This year, we were successful in procuring $5,000 from the program. So this year, the CERT team is going to be looking to purchase a few things of equipment. The major thing being a 4-inch trash pump. This is used to pump out large basements, large settings. For example, we had the BF Brown fire a few years ago. We had multiple sub-levels that were flooded at that point in time. These large 4-inch pumps can be used to get the water out of those type of situations. Additionally, we're looking to purchase a few pop-up tents with heaters, which would be critical. This year, we've used a couple of those in several instances for the vaccination testing sites and the clinics for the first responders, where we had the drive-through. So those pop-up tents were very critical in that regard. And then also some additional PPE and some protective equipment for our CERT members. Some of their gear is 25, 30 years old. Some new helmets, some new vests for them. And I'd be remiss if I didn't briefly speak about what these individuals, again, these are all volunteers that make up the CERT team. It's not paid positions. They're city residents, over a dozen of them that are a part of this team. They volunteer their time. Like a few things that I've mentioned, they're part of a lot of the vaccinations, the drive-in movie nights. They set up the light towers at a lot of things, events like Civic Days they're a part of. So a very dedicated group of our community that we're very fortunate to have here as part of the department. Captain Jacko Martin, the FEMA director, and our principal clerk, Melissa Ahola, we're very successful in this grant. We're competitive in it every year, so we're fortunate enough to get it again this year. So that just gives you a little brief overview of what the grant is used for and what we'll be using in particular this year. So those funds will be put to good use. And again, there's no match required for this. This is a straight acceptance of the grant. So I put it before you, so hopefully for acceptance.
Thank you very much. I have a motion from Councillor Boschman and a second from Councillor Walsh to approve the acceptance of this grant. Speaking on the motion, if there is no objection, we will approve by unanimous consent. Seeing no objection, it is approved. Thank you, and convey our thanks to the team as well.
Thank you.
I'll certainly do that, councilors. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Make a motion,
you.
we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Chief.
I have a motion and second for adjournment.
Counselor Hughes, did you want to second that motion instead so that you can be on the
No.
record?
No, I'm
Okay.
You'll have plenty of opportunity
I'm
going
just gonna say,
forward.
plenty opportunities.
All right, so if there is no objection, then we are adjourned. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Night, everyone.
Thank you.